So the clock has struck 10, so we're about to start this There's a webinar. Welcome everyone. As you can see on this first page, please write a few words, where in the world you are joining from, what you're doing. So we're about to start this There's a webinar. Sorry about that, some feedback loop. I think we're back. Without further ado, I will soon present Anna and Joakim, but the structure of this, we're gonna talk for about 45 minutes. Please write questions in the chat and I will try to collect them all at the end. So yeah, I think that's it. Joakim, Anna, anything else you want to say before you start the actual presentation?
No, I think let's just dive in, and so nice to see everyone here. I think that this is also an interesting topic. So we can start. Just a quick intro. My name is Joakim Olsson. I work at Daresay as a UX and UI designer. I've been here for almost 3 years now, helping our clients create great user experiences in their products. I am part of Daresay's internal design systems team because it's a big passion of mine. I consider myself a Figma ninja, and I've been working with some of these companies here with their design system, and I am currently a proud member of Svenska Spel's design systems team, helping them build a great design system. In my spare time, I like to spend time with my family and friends. I love to do creative stuff with my kids. I like to build Legos with them or create art. In the summer times, we like to grow our own food. And during the winter times, we like to ski a lot. I guess that's it for me. So let's introduce Anna.
Yes. Hello. My name is Anna, and I work at Daresay Umeå as a software engineer, and I specialize in front-end development. I love problem solving, and I love to create stuff with code as my main tool, preferably JavaScript. Sometimes I also like to create stuff with yarn. I'm really into crochet, and I try to learn how to knit as well. And when I'm not indoors with my crochet needle or my laptop, I like to spend time in nature. Also, I'm a big friend of animals. My career started in 2015, and since then I have worked for a newspaper. I have been part of a startup adventure, and then in 2021 I started at Daresay, where I do all kinds of different projects. And just like Joakim, I'm also part of our internal design system team. So back to you, Joakim.
Great. Now you know who we are. Let's continue. So what is a design system? This is a pretty good visual representation to help you understand how big it is. So all companies are complex with all its internal system. You have everything from processes, components, documentation, style guide, voice and tone, design principles, UI kits, dev standards, you name it. So the design system is the system that keeps everything together. So it's the glue that keeps everything together. But you should not pour everything into the design system. You need to really take a decision on what kind of value would this create in our design system. So it doesn't become this Swedish expression, böslåda, the box where you put everything that you really don't know where it should be. Say, just pour it into the design system. That's not how it should be. It should really be a good value in why it lives there. And as you can see, design systems, they are big, and 45 minutes is not going to cut it. We will not be able to cover it all. But hopefully, we will help you understand the value in why you should use one. So what is a design system? Well, a design system is a collection of reusable design elements, such as input fields, buttons, headers, etc., with specific rules and guidelines on how and when to use them. You could see them as Lego bricks. I think a lot of us have built with Legos as kids, right? And today, I think a lot of us would be able to build these builds just by looking at the images. But when we go into more complex builds, like this fantastic treehouse here, it's going to be much harder if the only thing we have is the image of the box. We might be able to do a representation of what we see, but it will not be the same building. So that's why we have the guidelines, the blueprint. We have all the components, we have the names, what the components are called, which components, building blocks, the bricks. The bricks are the components. I slipped into design system, the digital term. The bricks, we have the names, we know which bricks we can combine together to build this fantastic stairway up to the treehouse. So it's going to be much easier if we build this as a team, like they do in Lego Masters. So super important, what do we call these bricks? And as if you have seen Lego Masters, the right name is the 2x4 blue brick. Then everybody knows what blue bricks we will go and find in the Lego storage. But maybe somebody called this the 8 cloudy brick. And then we have misunderstanding. We don't really speak the same language. We don't really understand each other. So it's going to be much harder as a team to build this together. So here's a component. Just think for yourself what you would call it, or write in the chat. Feel free to do what you want. It could be called a banner, an alert, a dialogue, a message. There's not a wrong name to call this by these names. I mean, you wouldn't call this a button or an input field, but you see where we're going from. You just need to align on what we call it. So we speak the same language so that we understand each other. So it's going to be much easier as a team to build together. So within design systems, there are building blocks, a design system building blocks, a modular methodology called atomic design that breaks down design elements into smaller reusable components called atoms, which are then combined to create larger, more complex components within a scalable design system. So at the top right, you have the menu icon, you have the logotype, you have the avatar, and you have the user icon. And if you combine these components, we have a more complex build that we call a molecule. And we can call this, we can align on calling this the utility bar. So everybody understand what kind of component we should use. We can keep on adding molecules, atoms, and then we have an even more complex build called an organism. We can keep on adding the organisms, the molecules, and then we have a template, an even bigger component, a bigger building block to create with. And the value in this is speed, consistency, flexibility, and efficiency in design and execution. All right, Anna, take us into Codeland.
Will do. So as a developer, I of course think that the technical part of the design system is as important to consider. And I mean, after all, the code representation of the design system is what the end users will face in the end. And I thought that we could start with defining some basic concepts that we will encounter when a design system is translated into code. So as Joakim said before, a design system is a collection of reusable design elements with guidelines on how to use them. So in code, step 1 is to make sure that we actually have a matching set of such design elements. For example, if we have a button component in the design, we can go to the next slide. There should be a similar button component in code. So it could be a React component, for example. Designers often talk about tokens in the context of design systems. And we can go to the next. So tokens are like the smallest building blocks, such as colors, text styles, shadows, etc. So, for example, the button that we had a look at might use tokens to define the background color and the foreground color. And in code, we should make sure that we have a similar set of tokens as the design, and also that we actually use these tokens in practice instead of using hard-coded values. However, I think as developers, we often just call this variables. And as you might know, Figma actually recently introduced the concept of variables. The button might also have some dynamic parts, like the content or different themes. We can go to the next. So in code, we might call this the button interface or the component API. So this is like the protocol for how the component is allowed to be used in code. And for a React component, this would be the component props. And the collection of design elements in code, we might call the UI kit. And it's a good idea to make sure that the UI kit is kept in one place, separated from the rest of the code. And we can go to the next. So as developers, we are familiar with this concept of separating code into independent, reusable building blocks. And by making code modular and by striving to reduce complexity in each module, we can improve both the reusability and scalability. For example, as a developer, when we are creating a function, we usually want to make sure that it's small, reusable, and that it does one thing and one thing only. And this is actually exactly how we should approach design systems. So you can see that the core concept of design systems fits very well into established patterns for how to write good code. And when the design system is present in both code and design, developers and designers will suddenly have a shared definition of building blocks. And this will make our lives so much easier. I'm sure that many of us have experienced how a gap between design and code might cause us troubles. For example, as a developer, I have quite often been in a situation where the design that I get might not cover all the different scenarios that I will encounter in reality when I bring it to life. Also, it's pretty common to get a design that just almost matches the components that we have in code. But instead of me just improvising when this happens, I would love for developers and designers to be like more involved in each other's work. And I think a design system is a great place for exactly this kind of collaboration. Back to you, Joakim.
Thank you, Anna. I couldn't agree more. It's so important to bridge the gap between the teams, especially designers and developers, but the whole team, to bridge the gap to help us understand and build products together better. So as a designer, it really comes down to, do you want to push pixels, or as a developer, do you want to rewrite boring code? Well, I don't. I want to change the world, right? I want to solve real problems. That's what I want to focus my time on. I want to ideate. I want to innovate. So that's super good when we have these components that we can reuse then we can focus on the right thing where we really thrive as designers and developers and teams. 35,000. This is a big number, right? It could be the amount of Lego bricks that I have at home, or it could be the amount of Lego bricks that we as parents have stepped on. But it's actually the amount of decisions we as human beings make every day, right? I think the emoji speaks for itself. That's so many decisions. So, you know, that's why these folks, they hacked the system. They just wear the same outfit every day. So now they are down at 34,990 decisions. Phew! What a relief, right? You shouldn't underestimate Donald Duck. He's a genius. But maybe there's a better way. Because if we look at the design systems, these are some of the many areas that you need to make decisions on if you do not have a design system. You have typography, colors, elevation, strokes, ratio, margins, padding, spacing, height, width, shapes, icons, buttons, forms, navigation, animation, illustrations, accessibility, responsiveness, data visualization. These are some of the many areas. And if we go even deeper into, let's open the Pandora's box, right? Go into depth typography. You need to take decisions on what typeface you should use. The weights and styles, the font sizes, the line heights, the letter spacing, paragraph spacing, alignment. And you need to take these decisions on display, large, medium, small, headline, large, medium, small, title, large, medium, small, label, large, medium, small, body, large, medium, small. So as you can see, so many decisions. And we talked about this a little bit about variables and colors and how we define them and where we should use them. That's a whole another chapter because this takes too much time. It's super interesting. It's super valuable. And these decisions are so many. So, you know, maybe we are up on like 1,000 decisions. And it really takes time from what you want to focus on, right? And less decisions, more time. And what I've heard, time is money. So let's talk about the ROI. This is a really great calculator that you can use. It's called the knapsack.cloud/calculator. We are not sponsored. It's just a great tool. So you can try it out with your numbers. But this is a great tool to help you understand the money value in using a design system. So according to Envision's design system study, implementing a design system resulted in 50% increase in design consistency, 33% faster time to market, and 42% more efficient design and development workflows on average. These are fantastic numbers, right? And then you can look at this. You can look at the average employee cost. Let's say it's $90,000, and the number of employees using the system is 20 people. And the efficiency gain here, we're playing with the numbers, it's a humble 10%. And if we combine these numbers, you have a project cost savings at $180,000. That's a lot of money, right? And how can we calculate this? Well, you can look at how long it takes to build a component for each use case. So for example, there's 5 hours of design, there's 10 hours of engineering, and there's 5 hours of maintenance. We are up on 20 hours. And there's 20 use cases, then we have 200 hours. And the implementation time without the design system, if we look at the total effort in a project, would be 1,000 hours. And the implementation time with the design system, because we have all these components already built, so we can just pour it into the project, then it's 340 hours. And if we just do the calculation, we are down at 660 hours total hours saved. That's an efficiency gain on 66%. So now you see how we can calculate the efficiency gain. So let's go back and play with the numbers a little bit more. The employee cost is still the same. The number of employees using the system is now 30, and the efficiency gain has doubled from our humble 10% to 20%. So it's still a humble number, but then you have a project cost savings at $540,000. You know the emoji, right? So valuable. We can keep on playing with the numbers just a little bit more, so help you understand. If there's a bigger team, it's a bigger organization, the same employee cost, it has increased to 100 people, employees using the system, and the efficiency gain has tripled from 10%. Still a humble number on efficiency gain, but then you have a project cost savings at $2,700,000. And now we're talking, now we're cooking, right? Go to your managers, your stakeholders with this. I think it will help them understand that the money value, but you know, it's so much more value in using a design system. So we covered the efficiency. So hopefully you like understand the value in that, but there's so much more value, the consistency. So having a consistent brand and user experience through all of your products and all of your platforms, that's a huge win. And scalability. As products and teams grow, a design system can easily scale to meet changing needs. So the system can be expanded with new components, patterns, and guidelines, ensuring that all products maintain the same level of quality. And if you maintain the system, as you as a company grow, the design system grow with you. So you don't fall back 10 years with your products and designs and the components. So that's a huge win. And collaboration, we've talked about this. If the team has the same Lego bricks, right? Building the same Lego builds, it's going to be much easier to do the project together. So if we have the same building blocks, the same components, we speak the same language, it doesn't only increase collaboration. I would say that it's strengthening teams also, because it's going to be less friction. If we understand each other, it's going to be much easier to work together. And accessibility. If accessibility already is implemented into the design system, you really don't need to focus on that. It's already there. So you just need to focus on specific areas that you need to maybe tweak some things in this specific project, but like the components are already accessible. And the EU regulations are getting harder and harder on this like every year. So it's a good way to implement this already right now. And we talked about this, innovation. More time to innovate, to ideate, to actually solve the real problems that our users are facing. And that's much more fun to do than creating another input form. That's just my opinion. Anna, take us to Codeline again.
Yeah, so from a code perspective, a well-implemented design system can lead to several gains as well. And many of these gains are actually quite similar to the ones that Joakim brought up from a designer's point of view. A design system allows developers to easily reuse existing code rather than constantly reinventing the wheel. For example, instead of spending time on getting the padding exactly correct every time we build something, we can do this one time and then move on to more interesting tasks. So this is, of course, a time saver. And also, when we don't have to write similar code over and over again, I think it will also make our work as developers more varying and rewarding. And as a bonus, as code repetition decreases, code quality generally improves. As developers, we know that less code is maybe not always, but quite often better code. Also, as Joakim said, a design system can provide accessibility benefits, and this also goes for code. And this is because many accessibility issues can be addressed on a component level. So when we improve the accessibility in a design system, the adjustments that we make can have great impact in the app. If you adjust a button that is used in 20 places, suddenly you have not improved accessibility in 1, but 20 places. So this is why accessibility should be a core part of the design system. I think you can't solve it all from there, perhaps, but it's usually a very powerful way to start. Also, as part of designing component APIs, define the rules for how a component is allowed to be used. I would also suggest to be perhaps a bit more strict when it comes to accessibility. Sometimes when people are not considering accessibility, it's simply because we tend to forget about it. But if we build our component using a typed language such as TypeScript, we can actually create APIs that will enforce developers to set the ARIA attributes needed when using a component. So instead of having to actively choose when to consider accessibility, I think it should be the other way around. To not consider it should be the exception. So to sum this part up, we can go to the next slide. A well-implemented design system will also lead to different gains from a code perspective. We can save time as developers, code quality generally improves, and also design system make accessibility work a lot more efficient. We can go to the next, because I would also like to take some time to discuss the process around a design system, because the work does not end with just implementing it. One central part of the design system is the UI kit, as we talked about. But sometimes, even though we have a UI kit in place in code, people are not using it as much as we would want. So why could that be? We can go to the next. So one reason could be that we are not aligned with the designers. If the design components are not matching the code components, it will be tricky for developers to translate the design, and we're back again on reinventing the wheel over and over again. So we must make sure that the definition of building blocks is shared. Of course, some side steps are okay, but that should be conscious decisions. One other reason, and we can go to the next slide. One other reason we are not using the UI kit could be that the experience of using it is not that nice for developers. Maybe the components are too complex, or maybe we have the opposite issue, that the components are too simple and not flexible in a way that matches reality. And when something is not fulfilling our needs, I think we developers have a tendency to instead build our own thing, because we are problem solvers. But building more similar UI components is not really what we want, right? So this is why usability is an important factor to consider here. When we create components, we must carefully balance simplicity and flexibility, and also remember to have developers as one of the main target groups for the UI kit in mind. Another key in getting developers to use the UI kit in practice is awareness, I think. We have to know about what components exist and which one to choose. So when a new feature is about to get implemented, the first step for a developer is usually to identify what building blocks to use to create this. But to figure this out by just reading code can be both tricky and time-consuming. If you are new in a code base, it might even happen that you suddenly realized you have just built something similar to what already exists. So to make all of this easier, I think a visual and interactive overview of the components in code is very helpful. And one tool you could use for this, especially if you are a React developer, is Storybook. We can go to the next. Storybook is an open source tool used for automated documentation of UI components. It gives you both a visual overview, and also it's pretty nice to use during development and for testing. And this is because UI components are better tested in an isolated environment where like hard to reach UI states can be more easily simulated. For example, if you are implementing error handling for input components, it's quite annoying having to put your application in an error state just to test this. Also, one thing I like about Storybook is that it's automated. If you change a component prop, the documentation will automatically get updated. And then since the design system is constantly evolving, or at least this should be the case, this is a valuable feature. To make sure that the documentation is not getting outdated, I think a solution that offers minimal effort when it comes to maintenance is absolutely the way to go here. Yeah, we can go to the next. So now we hope that you feel inspired to do some design system work. Maybe your project doesn't have one yet, or maybe you have one, but you feel that it could probably be improved. So we would like to end this presentation with sharing some personal insights. So first, I think that you should feel confident. We can go to the next. Feel confident in the gains a well-crafted design system will bring. At the same time, it's also important to be a bit humble, I would say, because no design system is perfect, and it might sound easy in theory, but in practice, structuring a design system can be challenging. Also, if you join a new team and you notice there could be a lot of improvements here, also remember that people who have been part of the team for a long time are probably already well familiar with the current struggles, and there are probably ways or reasons a team hasn't been able to prioritize this. Also remember that a design system can be improved successively, step by step. Big product companies might even have dedicated people working full-time on the design system. But if you have limited resources, don't feel that you have to set everything aside to only focus on this for 6 months. Instead, try to find some design system allies in your current team, other people who are passionate about this, and start to improve things gradually while you build other features. And in the long run, this can actually have great impact. Also, if you have a team with not very technical stakeholders, make sure to communicate the value of a design system to them so that you get to spend some real time on it. Because even though things can be improved gradually, I think it's also important to define proper tasks for the design system and make sure that the design system goals are part of the product roadmap. And then last of all, even though we're standing here doing a talk, I want to suggest perhaps a bit less talking and more doing, because in the end, the most effective and trustworthy way to communicate value is to let the result of your actions speak for itself. If you don't have a design system, don't wait for permission to start. As developers, we wouldn't ask for permission to break up a function into reusable pieces. And I think we can apply the same principle to design systems. So don't be afraid to start experiment, and hopefully you will inspire people around you. Thank you so much for listening, and now Joakim will share some of his insights.
Yeah, yeah, thank you, Anna. So many great insights. And I would say, as Anna was talking about, start small, because I think this is a common problem that people do. They pour everything into the design system. They look at every component they have and try to fit that into a design system. I would say pick the 5 to 8 most commonly used components and the components that really adds value in your projects. And documentation, this is important, but you should keep it simple. So we don't really have the time or the effort to take to read like 2 pages about the button. So keep it small and simple. So it's easy for us to go into a product, understand the design system, the components, and just then head into solving the real problem. And as Anna talked about, have everyone on board. Everyone should understand why we are doing this and the value in creating a design system and using it. Because if everybody in the team understands that, then it's going to be a success. I am certain about that. And find ambassadors. If you have like a team of 20 people and only 1 people understands the value, and try to have everybody really understand it, it's going to be much harder. So find ambassadors. So maybe you are up on like 5 people that really understand the value. It's going to be much easier to get everybody on board to do this together. And maintenance is super important to maintain the system. As I talked about, the organization is evolving from every year as it goes. So the design system should be maintained so it keeps the same pace. So I guess that's everything from us. And now hopefully you understand the value in the design system, and maybe some questions have came up. So Fredrik, is there any questions in the chat?
There are at least one question so far. But first of all, thank you. So great and so inspiring to hear both perspectives from design and code and how we can work together. One of the questions is if you have any suggestions on platforms to handle this kind of documentation, the bridge between design and code.
Yeah, there are some platforms out there that is doing a good job. I think one of them is called Supernova. I haven't really looked into any of these platforms. I think a lot of people is doing things internally just to be the owner of everything. But there are platforms that is really good. So I would suggest just Google design system platforms, and you will have a lot of good options to see if it fits your company, because it really needs to be a good tailored fit for your company and how you work. I don't know, Anna, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah. Yeah. So the tool I mentioned, Storybook, I find quite nice for automatic documentation of the UI kit in particular. And I think what's nice with that is that like we can actually render the real code components. So it really reflects the reality. So, and you can also use Storybook for like the UX team to test and give feedback on the code components. So yeah, that's a tool I would recommend. But also, as Joakim said, I think like each team and organization is different. So I think just also like try things out, what fits for you. Maybe you can start with like super simple, just with a like basic list of your components.
Great.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you will come a long way with just Figma and code, because Figma has so many good features, especially with the new variables thing that they recently implemented into Figma. It really bridges the gap between designers and developers. So I think you will go a long way there. But then for a design platform to keep everything into that, there's many different options. I would say Zero Height is one good that I heard a lot about. I think is like a good platform to look into, or Supernova. These are the ones that I know about.
Great.
Great question. Thank you.
So please, if you have any suggestions on how we can take this further, this is the first webinar in our what could be a design system series. So please share if you would like us to dig into this topic or that topic. You mentioned, yeah, the whole thing around colors. This is scraping the surface, but of course there are more things to tell and share. So yeah, if you have any ideas on topics that we can work with or try to present our perspective on, please share. And of course we're open to reach out to Anna or Joakim if you have any questions. They are on LinkedIn and also of course on the Daresay email. So yeah, we're all happy to help or bounce ideas or workshop together with you on your design system endeavors, of course. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us and listening to us. Have a nice day.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.